This session will focus on the significance of non-kinetic warfare in securing national strategic space capabilities. Military practitioners will discuss various methods to enhance resilience against threats in the space domain, including electronic warfare, signal jamming, and anti-spoofing tactics. The discussion will also cover advanced technologies like directed energy systems and AI-driven threat detection that bolster operational security. Participants will gain insight into developing comprehensive framework for safeguarding national interest in space while addressing the evolving challenges posed by. For the same, may I call upon the chair and moderator of the session, Lieutenant General Karanbir Barar, GOC, Dakshin. I request everyone to kindly take their seats. We've already rang the bell, so they must be coming. May I call upon the panelists for the session. Lieutenant General R.S. Raman, Director General of Military Intelligence. Lieutenant Colonel V. Shanmugavelan, CTO, Elena Geosystems. And Dr. Srinivas Shastri, former Director, DSP, DRDO. Over to you, Chair.
Mr. Shastri, if you can call. So should I start? Sit. Okay, Mr. Shastri, I request you to join in. So good evening and Jai Hind. Starting after tea, in fact, it is still in progress. So nonetheless, we'll start, and we got 30 minutes. We are on a topic of non-kinetic space warfare, securing national space capabilities. Firstly, I'd like to thank SIA for inviting me here and giving this opportunity. And secondly, also for choosing this topic of non-kinetic space warfare, because this topic, even in conventional warfare, is not discussed when it is gaining so much of importance because of technology. So in space, this is being discussed, so compliments to SIA. As far as this topic is concerned, this is not a topic in isolation, firstly. It is connected with everything which has been spoken for the past 2 days. And more importantly, as far as non-kinetic things are concerned, anything which is going up now has to ensure that they are secure from any kind of non-kinetic interference which may happen by any country or even non-state actors. Initially, when the satellites had gone up, possibly this was not a thought process. In fact, when the first aircraft also was built, it wasn't meant for targeting. So, we have a large number of satellites which are gone, but now everything which goes up has to have non-kinetic. But I'll just take a minute for the kinetic operations, which is not the topic, but then the sequence non-kinetic has come because of kinetic. The first kinetic actually direct ASAT attack was long back. That was done by US in a program called Starfish in 1962 at 400 kilometers. But that kind of a thing had caused collateral damage to 6 or other satellites. and there have been other attempts also, but then test, of course, has been done by Russia, of course. China did in 2007 and then some more, and India, of course, demonstrated it. But I think everybody knows that the space debris, and as far as the net goes, there are about 34,000 debris pieces, more than 10 centimeters, which are orbiting at 27,000 kilometers per hour. So something called the Kessler syndrome can occur, that when a chain reaction of one debris hitting another, and then it starts a chain reaction, can in fact destroy all the satellites. Hopefully that shouldn't happen, because then it requires a very strong regulatory framework that we don't do ASAT and we control, because after all, I think whatever the space is, it is doing 80% good work as far as to the humanity as it's concerned. So therefore, because of that, the non-kinetic portion of the warfare has taken center stage. The advantages of non-kinetic space warfare is, firstly, it can be in some cases irreversible. So you can be in the gray zone and it can give you escalation control. There are no debris. It gives you an alternate option. And there is also this deniability and attributability, which can, and of course the cost benefits compared to ASAT, and more important is that by ASAT you destroy one satellite, but if it is, let's say, a cyber attack, you may kind of disrupt a constellation. You can do much more bigger things rather than destroying one satellite. But what are the types of non-kinetic? I think the audience would be aware. I just spell it out. Non-kinetic physical operations, of course, EMP and directed energy weapon, lasers and microwave. You have electronic warfare, which is basically jamming and the down and uplink and spoofing and things like that. And of course, the cyber warfare, which is attacking your software and your networks and your data. But the major thing which I want to highlight is, before we get into non-kinetic warfare, space warfare, the most important thing is SSA, which was also talked about. Unless you have space situational awareness, what will you jam? So, the sequence, the operational framework of a non has to be spelled out by people in uniform. That firstly, you should have a space situational awareness. Then only you have a plan for conducting in case. Now, the other point which I want to make is that the same electronic warfare or even a case of cyber warfare, in a conventional setting, you generally target a tactical battle area. But if you do the same thing in space, maybe you target at the strategic level. So that is the difference. The technology is the same, but if it is done in space or through space, then you target obviously a larger area. Therefore, space becomes more important for conducting non-kinetic warfare. We have been speaking of MDO. Now, multi-domain operations, if you remove space from the equation, I don't think you can conduct multi-domain operations. Therefore, in future, as I foresee, to prevent a country from attacking you, I think the first attack would come on the space as far as this non-kinetic portion will come. So, all multi-domain operations, especially when you're talking about the West, when they are operating in the Pacific or something, are all controlled through space. It can't obviously be done through terrestrial means. So, space becomes very, very important, and we definitely want to go ahead with that. Since time is short, I will just limit myself to this. We have a very distinguished panel. We have Lieutenant General Raman. He is a DGMI. His appointment speaks for itself. Very distinguished career, done all the important courses, Staff College, NDC and all. Has commanded in high altitude and insurgency, has been in UN mission. So he is our first panelist. Then we have a soldier to technocrat to scientist. From 4 Madras, we have Colonel Velan, who's gone on to make the ELINA geosystems. His company is the one which I interacted, I think, maybe 6 years back. He's the one who's proliferating NAVIC, which is the system which is controlling Indian satellites, IRNSS. And then he made his first NAVIC chip in 2018 or 19. And its GNSS processor, he made it in, I think, 2023. And of course, we have Dr. Shastri, who's an expert in this field from DRDO. So, not taking much time, I will first request, in fact, the DGMI to give his talk, and then Colonel Velan, and then Dr. Shastri.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Sia. Thank you, General Brar, sir. Thank you, General Pannu is not here. He is my corps commander, and he's been my guiding light for quite some years now. Firstly, thank you very much for having invited me here and to allow me to share my thoughts from I would say, a user's perspective. Why I say that is, I've been in this appointment for some time, and possibly if you see who demands the largest of the surveillance imaging, I think it will be Army, if I'm not wrong. And to the kind of specification that we want, I think we have been articulating the requirements for our future space program, in what form we want the imaging to be done. So when I'm going to be saying the next few words, it's going to be from that perspective. Before I come on to the non-kinetic aspects, just two things I want to make a point. In my little understanding, a space asset which has been sent up by military, civil, or a commercial venture, they all are national capabilities. They all are strategic capabilities. So therefore, we have to handhold the civil, private vendors, let them have the initiative to launch, and we have to handhold and help them to give the national capability that we are talking about. You see, world over, much of the launches have been done by the civil participation and not limited to a military participation. So therefore, any future legislation that we're going to be getting in, or any other technology that we're going to be introducing, should be overarching for the entire space asset of a nation, we should see, rather than seeing it only for a military kind of use. The second thing I want to make a point is the exponential pace with which the space assets are being deployed. We all are aware. There are mega constellations which are being spun out there. So the orbits and the spectrum have their own finite limits. If not today, tomorrow it's going to become so congested that it will, if we have already not we don't have a legislation to address the commercial operations which are being undertaken, we will be forced into getting into legislations. And when we get there, on that day, some of the nations and some of the entities would have already had a significant footprint there, and they will be calling the shots. So if we want to protect our space assets, the first thing to do is have your space capabilities built in there. What I want to say is we have to, with a real surge, we have to put our assets up there in the sky. It doesn't matter whether it is from military, it doesn't matter whether it is civil, it even doesn't matter if you are getting only the services from the other constellations which have been already launched. But the need is you should have your space capabilities in place. Otherwise, you won't have any. to protect. And when you have more space capabilities, what will happen is there will be a dispersion. So even if there is a kinetic or a non-kinetic attack which happens, you still have redundancy built in. So the first thing we have to do is put adequate space assets up there. So if that is the start point, now the space assets from a military point of view give 5 basic enabling features. One is the ISR, we all are aware, comment, LNT, communication, and possibly navigation. So all these reduce our OODA cycle. We are able to observe, orient, and decide and act at a faster time frame. So they are absolute essential for the warfare of tomorrow. If they are absolute essential, that means the adversary is going to make that much sure that you don't have them. So he is going to be interfering. How he interferes is largely, like General Brar said, because of the anonymity and the range of the gray zone warfare that he can prosecute. It's going to be non-kinetic for a predominantly long period. So while I will not touch upon the technicalities about how to secure the space asset from non-kinetic attack, because there are enough and more experts here who would know much more than what I do. But what I want to make an effort is try to get a framework, since whether we like it or not, in times to come, even we would have substantial amount of space assets there. And we need a framework how to protect these strategic capabilities of us. So broadly, if we want to see, it's not entirely my authoring. It's available. I have just tried to customize it to our context. We need to absolutely be clear and define our space, define our resources in terms of which organization is going to be using it, the value it provides, the functionality, and also which segment of the space asset are we talking? Are we talking about the satellite, the link, or are we talking about the ground stations? Then to assess the threat, is it going to be a natural or a man-made threat? In this case, in the context of the talk, we're talking about the man-made ones. How bad is going to be? Is it going to be temporary or permanent? What are the vulnerabilities I have if those are the threats which are going to be coming? Segment we've already spoken. And then I have to evaluate my loss in terms of permanence or it being a temporary blip. The various elements, enablers which I said, surveillance, communication network, navigation, which part is going to get affected? And assigning the safeguards, I mean, it will be humanly impossible to have the same kind of safeguards built across. It should be proportional to the value of the satellite, the value of the functionality that you want to retain. And we have to make a now, if we have to have our space capabilities intact, there are 4 to 5 operational capabilities that we need to retain. We need to detect and be able to report the threats. We need to identify the threat, locate it, so that after the diagnostics, we can take corrective actions. We need to withstand and defend, repair, and thereafter assess the impact. If these are the operational capabilities we want to retain, let's see in this little matrix how we can go about. Under the impact, the same 5 features which I just said are listed. And the functional requirements to keep those operational capabilities alive, I've just listed. This is not exhaustive and this is not complete. This is just illustrative or demonstrative of how we can possibly go through. I'm very sure if minds are put together, we'll have a much more exhaustive and more relevant list. So hardening, shielding, you can read all of them. Developing robust space management system, space maneuverability, protection, ground control stations, defensive operations, threat warning, space weather sensor system, mobile ground station, diagnostics, and those. And what these black and white spots indicate is, wherever there is a black spot, possibly there you need a stronger aspect of intervention, or the functional requirement has to be a little stronger to be administered. That's what I called as to be, the safeguards have to be proportional. It can't be one fit all. And if we want to further go, how do we go about it? Get a little more of resolution. Then we are talking about, in each of the capabilities which are listed in the center heading and also in the under the goals. Let's take the first one: detect, report the threat in near real time. The functional capabilities that we require, these will be essentially those black dots which I had shown: robust space management system, real-time threat assessment, and such. And what are the limitations I have to preserve this capability of mine? We can list that also, so that we are conscious about our limitations and the key technologies which would be required to keep these capabilities alive and kicking. So for each one of them, if we make a matrix, we would be able to arrive at a broad framework based on which our space capabilities, when we are building up, be it being launched, the military assets being launched, the civil assets being launched, or the commercial assets being launched, if we put them through this sieve, then possibly there will be a degree of stability and survivability which we may be able to ensure. These are the other two of the features. So if we happen to do that, then we will be able to retain our space capabilities, which is listed in that green band. And these are the enablers which we want. Like I said, it can be more exhaustive than what is given here. So since the time is short, I will try to conclude here. But all I want to say once again, where I began from, is whether we like it or not, we are also going to have space capabilities in huge numbers, in exponential numbers, because that is a matter of survivability and national security. National security, I'm not saying only military security, national security. So we need to deploy those space assets. So if we are going to deploy those space assets, we need a framework to ensure that they survive. And therefore, we have to keep ourselves alive to the kind of legislations which are going to come and put our stakes there, so that the legislations which globally come thereafter are not one-sided, don't put us to a disadvantage. And of course, the technologies that are required to keep these space capabilities alive, we have to be constantly thinking with the academia, with the private ventures, and others. Globally, we have to interact and have these things in place. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Raman. I'll just pick 2 points on. He's given you a framework and what is generally required as far as Defense Army is concerned. The OODA loop he talked of. You see, all other systems or land systems, we can increase our OODA loop. But it is only in the space where you can decrease the OODA loop of the enemy. So therefore, space becomes more important. And other point which, in fact, we need assets in space. But I think we should also, it is for the decision makers, including him and all of us, to also think, till the time assets are going up, we have a lot of people in India, and there is a lot of information which is available freely, which they compile and can give it to us as ISR. So, we should start tapping them so that at least we get a basic framework of ISR, space situational awareness, and all other things which we talk of, at least ready. We may not have accurate, but definitely because in a collaborative mode, there are a lot of countries, a lot of companies who are sharing their data with India. And it is understood that as long as their deterrence, the other side, whichever side it may be, will be feel not so keen on doing something when they know it can be done onto them also. So with this, I now call upon Colonel Velan. And he's, as I told you, he's the NAVIC man of India.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity, especially to SIA. See, we started talking about space assets and how do we use it within the armed forces. In around 2007-8, we started talking about it. 2008, we organized a small conference here in Delhi. Then slowly we created an integrated space cell. I'll be very fast in talking. If you want to interrupt, you can interrupt and ask me. We had an integrated space cell, something again defensive type of thing. Then we created Defense Space Agency, again defensive in approach. Whereas space is a new platform for fighting. It's an aspect that has been understood by the world community way back in Cold War times, not today. This platform, what are we going to do? And it's very good that today at national level we are talking about protecting our space assets, which means we have to be aggressive in protecting this. That way I'm thankful for SIA for having brought out this subject. How do you protect? You put a space asset and go and protect your asset, then it's all what is a cowboy type of thing which has happened long time back. It's not an organized way. How do you protect your assets? You can protect your asset if there is an international law for that. So, but what do we have today? You have UN USA and some very rudimentary space laws. Germany and China thought about together around 2010, they started bringing a new set of space laws, which was more towards what you call it as towards putting more bombs or more offensive weapons in space. They were trying to bring such a thing. We need to have our own rightful space-based rules and laws. As a government, as a nation, we should ask for it. Being one of the spacefaring nations, we should now fight for having such a proper body. After Second World War, we had this UN trying to resolve so-called fights or so-called conflicts. Have they ever done it? In space, do we have anything rudimentary like that for having to stop our conflicts in space? Space is already weaponized. If you read what has been happening during Cold War time, space is already weaponized. How do you go stop it? For example, I tell you, around 2008-9, one mission of the US space shuttle took a communication satellite of Indonesia, placed another communication satellite, which means they perfected the technology at that time. They can go and pick up any satellite. A geo satellite is the topmost thing. If they can pick up a geo satellite, they can do any MEO satellite, LEO satellite. How are you going to protect it without having an international law against it? Okay, having got, let's say there is international law. Who is talking here in the government side in India? In our concept, we generally have CCS. Who is talking in space in CCS? That as a body we should talk about. We should have a space governing body at national level. There was a movement under General Khandare to having a national geospatial authority in place to at least sort out these images and how do you position yourself, etc. It has not come out so far. If we cannot sort out our own utilization of space assets within our own boundaries, how are you going to say that when someone else comes to me, how do I stop it? So we need to have something like that, some structure at national level. Beyond DSA, first thing we should have a space forces. It's not just a Defense Space Agency. We should have a Indian Defense Space Forces in place, like America. Then only people will start listening to us. If we don't have a space force, we cannot show off our weapons. In 2010, DRDO again published one of the greeting cards. They said we have anti-sat capability. And of course, General Broad was talking about if you have anti-sat capability, it is detrimental to you, not to them. 2010, China did it, and it was detrimental to them. How do you stop a rogue from firing your launcher to create a problem in your own aerospace? How do you stop it? At national level, we should have someone thinking about it and enact such rules and regulations. So that's my point of view. When you come on to securing national space assets. Apart from that, when you come on to geospatial authority and all that thing, I've explained that thing. More and more we start using space assets. It's not going to be just Army, Navy, Air Force, it's going to be civilian as well. So amalgamation of industry, the armed forces, and the public is required when we start using and protecting the national assets. Okay. Then the approach, one of the best approach what I found is that if you want to administer or to protect your assets which are in LEO, you go to MEO satellites. If you have MEO satellites, you go to GEO. If you have to protect your GEO satellites, you have to go beyond that. Are we thinking about it? If I have to protect my GEO satellite, I should be beyond GEO, protecting it. What about the outstation in moon to protect our assets in Earth? Is what you have to think about. Space as a domain is not restricted to like land warfare, your boundaries are the international boundary is there. Not like that. It is beyond. Anything above Earth is space. So do we talk about that? If such a force is there, then we talk about the international law in outer space, we have to talk about. How do we protect people from there? It's type of technologies we need to develop to protect our own space capabilities. Today, to protect the capability to protect our space assets is almost nil. It's the right thing that we brought out a topic today so that we at least start thinking in protecting our space assets in a more aggressive terms. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Colonel Velan. I'm calling you doctor. I thought you will speak something on NAVIC also and how you went about it, which you have not done. But you see, he is highlighting points that we need a regulatory. There's only one treaty, I think, of 1967, which prevents weaponization of space. But the point is, if the missile is being guided by space, it is not weaponization of space. So what do you call it? And as it is, space doesn't have boundaries. So every country is involved directly or indirectly. So there are a lot of ifs and buts. And but as far as things are concerned, the people that you are saying that we are not talking, I'm sure people are talking. Only thing they are not sitting here with us. As far as a lot of things which are happening, whether in ISRO domain, this thing that had been discussed in a very closed room, just being, things which are not discussed in open forum. So things of concern are being discussed. But one thing which I must tell you, the space assets can only be protected by, like in warfare, I am from a tank, not by armor, it is protected by technology. The non-kinetic space warfare or protection of it or counter space capabilities are only protected if you have the technology. If I'll just or I'll say it in the end, but I'll now call upon Dr. Shastri to cover his part. We have about 5 for him. Okay. 5 minutes, sir.
I don't need much time. So, first of all, customarily and from my heart, let me thank Sia and Anant to give me the opportunity to come here and speak something about which I have not done. For example, as part of DRDO, I was part of that ATISAT mission, Shakti mission, Shakti. So, I was part of it. Now I am supposed to speak about non-kinetic from a person who has done kinetic. So, anyway, that was one part of it. I think at the end of second day and the last speaker of the panel, there will be nothing much left for me to talk about. Everything has already been talked about, how to protect. You need SSA to protect your assets. You should know what threat is coming if you want to evade that. And non-kinetic sort of things are very difficult to monitor. SSA cannot do anything about non-kinetic. For example, I am pumping high power microwave. What SSA can do about it? Nothing can be done about it. And I am saying these are all not threats at all. This kinetic, non-kinetic thing like high power lasers or microwaves or something like that. They are very costly solutions. I will give an idea. Anybody can take it forward. Because as a satellite designer, Of course, I was trying to do some kind of non-kinetic experiments also for the national security, which I cannot disclose here. But in that process, I was going through our designs, and I was wondering, every satellite, has got an antenna dish, and there is something called LNA. After the feed, there is a low noise amplifier. It is very easy to kill it. You don't have to, hundreds of microwatts you don't pump. I was worried when I was doing the experiment. I was supposed to give something around, because we don't know the orientations and all those things. Worst case experiments when I was trying to plan, it took around 1 kilowatt I have to transmit. But then the minimum, if everything is favorable, I need to do only 100 watts. So as a designer, I was wondering, if I transmit 1 kilowatt, the LNA will burn. I don't have to send a big missile to attack a missile. I just have to send 1 kilowatt of power to that, and LNA will burn and back off. That satellite will be of no use because it cannot take any more telecommands. Without a telecommand, a satellite is a dead duck. So this is what I was worried. Sitting here also, if I tell the secret, I don't know how many of you will take on and make. But anyway, that is also another kind of non-kinetic attack. And I think it's very inexpensive and anybody can do. But I don't know, how do we prevent this from our own people doing it? So this also is a major, I have not only given a kind of simple solution, but a big problem it is. One has to go back and think. Of course, as a business people and strategists and users, we are not worried. But as a designer, I am worried now. How do I protect my own LNA? How do I immunize that? This is a technology. Some people should try. From overwhelming the LNA, how do we protect ourselves even if I send 1 kilowatt or 10 kilowatts of power? Because people are having power. Now 100 kilowatts somebody will transmit. Is there a way, as a technologist or as a scientist, can I find some way to protect that? Maybe some kind of bypassing methods are there, but they are not tried or experimented, not thought of. So we need to think about this. At least I need to think about it to protect some of the satellites, what we are trying to build now. So I think I have taken this opportunity to thank also to, reduce my time of speaking so that I will exhaust my time more than this. I have nothing much to speak. So these are all the small ideas I have got and I thought I will put forth and let's see how far it goes. And thank you once again and thank you very much, Sia and the Chair, General Brar. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shastri. Because ASAT was so expensive, that's why you were shifted to non-kinetics. So, like he brought out very clearly that this thing of ASAT and all and Dazzler, they require something which is very, very costly and it doesn't achieve that effect. 10 kilowatts can do what, all we are thinking. So, non-kinetic, I come again, is very, very something which we have to. And so you have given this, I think, very good point that before we do all that, this problem statement at what, it is kind of what a terrorist can think of attacking you. So imagination of what can be done should be thought of when we are sending things up.
Actually, I was worried to put out my imagination. Because somebody should
So, like I was also, we were discussing aircraft being this thing, but the future hijacking will not be somebody going in the aircraft. They will just control because the aircraft is not being controlled by space, satellites, your ILS system, CAT-C lighting, radar, everything is technology. So some hijacker will, I again don't want to put these ideas, but we have to war game such ideas and so we have to have that protection. I'll just take 30 seconds to, if we have the technology, all these are technology experts. So if you have to have non-kinetic capability, you have to have technology. Like if you have AI, you can do anomaly detection in your satellite telemetry system if there any spoofing or any tracking. If you can track the satellite trajectories, collision avoidance. If there is any, signal difference through AI, you can detect that. So, AI will play a big role. So similarly, all satellites which have gone up, now, if they need to be upgraded or made hardened or something, you need in-service satellite inspection, repair, and whether you have debris collection systems going in. Blockchain will decentralize your data, and space asset tracking will also happen. The 6G, which China has just sent, 6G is something which will give you inter-satellite links, and it will have Internet of Space things. So, all these things which we talk of have to be put on ground. So once these things are on ground, then definitely you will have a better system, and of course the non-kinetic portion. So I'll end here. I'll request all of you to please give a round of applause to this panel. And I'm sure we had a very short and useful discussion. Thank you very much, and thank you, sir, and thank you, Janal Panu, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Indeed, a useful session. We can have a group picture.